right, thank you so much for coming out tonight. We're going to have a great presentation about Lincoln High School development. But first, we need to elect a secretary. Sherry Solomon, our current secretary, is having some health issues, and so we're going to, Eric has volunteered. Are you volunteering just for tonight? Or?
Yes, this will be my second time.
Okay, so a temporary secretary.
Yes.
Thank you for your volunteering.
So you will have a recording to work off of, I'm pleased to say. Here, you also have a microphone.
Okay, and so we do introductions at the beginning. If you have something that you want to announce, if you have some issues in your neck of the woods, please use this time so you don't have to sit through the whole meeting and us approving minutes and things like that to finally tell us what you came here for tonight if you needed to let us know. So I've lived in Goose Hollow since 2001, first as a renter at the Envoy Apartments when they were apartments, and then loved this neighborhood and eventually bought a house here with my husband, Scott.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I've lived in Goose Hollow for 3 years, I think. Moved to Portland about 4.5 years ago. And I teach piano and work at the coffee shop in the neighborhood.
I'm Jerry Powell. Since we're doing history here, I moved to the neighborhood in 1972 when I was a grad student at Portland State. And have been here ever since in any one of 3 different addresses. 4 different addresses. And the latest one is to my wife's chagrin, an exercise in restoring a 1885 pair of houses.
Sherry Salomon, and we moved here around 6 years ago with our son Daniel, and we moved into Goose Hollow, and we made it our home. We have a little condo after having a couple of rentals, and we just love Goose Hollow and the vibe here, and we're committed to trying to keep it Goose Hollow livable, and that's why I'm up here.
My name is Eric Simon. I've lived actually on Gander Ridge for 6 years, and I'm just here to help create some turmoil.
Michael Mahaffey, and I've lived in Goose Hollow since 2011. I have my home here, my business here, also our nonprofit, small urban think tank, and I've been a renter the whole time.
Michael, I don't think your mic is on.
Test. Yeah, it's on. It's just, I don't know why it's not very loud. There we go. Try it again.
And after introduction, we'll talk about trying to quick.
Connie Duncan-Webrock. I'm a member of MAC and a second-year trustee.
I'm Juliet Carlton. I'm also with the MAC. I'm in the Leadership Development Program, and this month I'm learning about the Executive Office of Independent Affairs.
And you wanted to come?
And I wanted to come. Very good.
Welcome.
Did you come for the coffee or the cookies?
She is in this business, so she knows like big cookies and cookies.
Unfortunately, I get too many cookies, so I will save them for you guys. Thank you.
I'm Andy Meharry, and I've lived here for 11 years. And I think I'm Tiffany Hammer, and I'm a property owner in Goose Hollow for about 14 years. Used to live here about 5. I don't live in Goose Hollow now, but I'm around all the time with the 14th Montgomery Roses Project.
You're the famous prose lady.
I'm Alan Clausen, the Northwest Examiner, and you may don't know this, but my first Portland address was in Goose Hollow.
Oh,
Didn't know that.
Actually, I did.
Yeah, you would know. You would know, Jerry.
Steve Salomon. I came here with Sherry and my son Daniel about 6 years ago. We lived in Collins Circle, and then Vista St. Clair, finally in Fort Place, just outside of Washington.
Scott Schaefer, I'm resident, also co-chair with Jerry of the Planning Committee. and served on the design advisory group with Eric for Lincoln High School. So I'm excited to see what he and Chris have to say tonight. If you get an email, I'm also on the communications committee, so if you get an email, chances are it's probably from me. I'm the Scott and from Scott for the emails that announce these type of meetings.
I'm Chelsea Jennings, and I'm currently visiting.
John Whipple, Goose Hollow resident, 2 years.
Liz Pixley, Goose Hollow, owner of condo, and about 5 years in Goose Hollow.
Perfect timing.
We're doing introductions.
My name is Chris Henderson. I'm a graduate student at the University of Iowa. I'm writing my dissertation on thorns fans.
On what?
Great.
Just hanging out and getting a sense of Goose Hollow as well.
On Thorns fans?
Yes.
Stephen Easterday. I moved from Southwest Hills into Goose Hollow 23 years ago on Vista Ridge. And Jerry moved here when I entered the Marine Corps. Not to make Jerry old.
Chris Lynn, partner with Bora Architects, here to talk about Lincoln High School.
Eric Herding with Portland Public Schools, also here to talk about Lincoln High School.
Michael Mixachek, Goose Hollow resident.
And Barbara Mixachek.
Excellent. Okay, and then you wanted some time right now?
Yeah.
Would you mind going to the mic? Thank you.
Is there anyone who has not signed in?
So I'm Mary Fetch with the MAC. Many of you have helped testify in front of TriMet to try and keep the Kings Hill MAC station open. They're going to vote next Wednesday. It'll be the last meeting before they vote. They will have a resolution out, which is typical of the Friday before. So I will forward it when I see it online and forward it to Goose Hollow if you could send it around to your group. I've been told that the Skidmore Fountain Station is pulled off the proposal. So they got theirs saved. They're going to revisit it in 3 years to let more development happen. But isn't that what we also ask for, is give us a few years to let development happen. So my assumption is that it's the Kings Hill and the downtown mall stations that will be proposed to close. And they will vote on that next Wednesday. There's still public comment before that from 9 to 9:45. Same location at the 2 World Trade Center. So.
And Downtown Neighborhood Association is fighting to save the one that's in downtown. They would like for a member of Goose Hollow Foothills League, either a board member or just a member, to show up. And when they say, can the people in the audience please rise if you support, that you're part of that, and then testify to support them in their efforts to save the downtown ones on the mall, but also Kings Hill. So I can't be there. Do we have anyone who can be there? Next Wednesday at 8:45.
Yeah, 8:45 you show up, testimony between 9 and 9:45.
If everything goes as planned, the 3 of us will be. It's Daniel, Steve, and
I will
myself.
send you info.
Excellent, thank
Great,
you so
thank
much. And by the way, you guys are, we can always, Goose Hollow can always count on your family. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's hear from Portland Public Schools. You guys are up. So while they're setting up, I think I'll take this time just to move the agenda along and let you know about one of the efforts that we're working on for food carts. So the board voted to give me permission to ask ODOT on behalf of the neighborhood to activate as much space around I-405 as possible to get food carts in that area or anything to activate the space rather than have it filled with needles and human waste and et cetera. So we're very grateful to Mary, who has a relationship with the upper level leadership at ODOT, and arranged a meeting. And we sort of said every available square inch around of the land you own around I-405. They studied it. They looked for water sources, whether it was flat enough or whether it could be leased out. And they came back with 2 proposed parcels that they thought were really ready right now. That's at 13th and Alder. very flat, very accessible, has a good sidewalk because they can't lease it to us if there's not a good ADA compliant sidewalk, or they're not leasing it to us. We're just trying to say, could we have this use available here? And then 14th and Montgomery, it's under underpass or overpass. So both of those sites are possibilities, and I'm currently working the phones and working our relationships and trying to find people who would like to run food carts out of that, because I don't aspire to do that, nor does Goose Hollow. But we can certainly try to recruit people who do that.
Are you trying to recruit the ones that need to move?
I've contacted the 10th and Alder carts that are being kicked out of where they are. And I'm in connection with the German, I forget the name of the cart, but the German brat cart that's one of the oldest there at the 10th and Alder food cart pod.
Because I know that the Northwest had a meeting, I think it was a week ago, trying to coordinate as well as some people in Linton to take some of the cards, because I know they have to be gone, I think, by the end of June.
Right, they're being solicited by many people to try to get the good ones to go to other food cart pods. So there is an interest. I've contacted when Mary and I met with ODOT. They said, well, you need to contact BDS, the Bureau of Development Services, and you need to know what the zoning code would require. And when I spoke to BDS, they said, I think she was giving me a hint. She said, in order to not trigger design review, you need to make sure that it complies with ODOT standards. So I think ODOT needs to have something that says, if food carts are put on our site, they should comply with the city standards for food carts. And therefore, it meets a standard and does not trigger a design review, which would cost whomever is doing this more money. So that's where we are right now, and I just wanted to get that out. Thanks.
Excuse me, when you had mentioned 14th and Montgomery, where could they fit food carts?
13th and Montgomery.
Okay.
Sorry.
Unless they put them on the boulder.
No. 13th and Montgomery, which has a wide sidewalk, it's partially covered. It's for lease right now.
Okay, that little
yes.
alcove.
Yes,
Sure.
so the city, the BDS requirements for food carts are that they have to meet certain design code guidelines. So where the food cart sits has to be an impermeable surface like concrete. There's a long list of things. So in my opinion, ODOT could just say, you must meet the city code on food carts. But I'm not an attorney on land use, so I don't know these things. But anyway, that's just our little effort to take space that it seems to be nuisance space and make it a more vibrant part. Lincoln High School kids walk through the neighborhood. They use the 10th and Alder food cart pods every school day. That you can see a swarm of kids heading over from Lincoln to there. So losing the 10th and Alder food cart pod impacts us in a way that this would solve several issues all at once. And we're very grateful to the MAC and to Mary in particular. It was her personal relationships that got us this meeting. And so it's just, we can do great things together. So, and Mary, do you have any comments on the food cart process or any observations you've seen?
I think they're open. I think what we're seeing is an open interest. I mean, they've done a lot of good research. I mean, when we came for a second meeting, they had already, the first meeting they had driven by and looked at the various sites. The second meeting, they had even more detailed information about each potential site. So I think they've really done some good due diligence.
And they own a lot of land around I-405. A lot of it sits completely unused or used for illegal activities. And this was not, the official Goose Hollow position. This is my opinion that I gave to them. Was they need to lease it. They need to put it into active use. There's massive amounts of land on the slope by the boulders that Tiffany's dealing with that could be put into a 99-year lease and turned into housing. And it's quite a lot of land that I think is in very poor use. Since we're waiting for the technology to,
Yeah, I recently went to a meeting, Tiffany went as well. It was on June 11th. It was Downtown Public Safety Action Committee. In a way, it's a misnomer. We thought, at least I thought it was from the Downtown Neighborhood Association, but it isn't. In fact, I guess they had had this for a number of years and then it kind of just fell apart. Their goal really is they want to bring in the surrounding downtown neighborhoods, the Pearl, the Northwest, and us, Old Town, Chinatown, and hopefully maybe get a concentrated effort dealing with, a lot of issues. They had members of the police department, the parks department. They're now trying to establish their mission statement, good luck to that. And their next meeting is going to be July 9th. And so we'll see how that develops. There were probably, about 25 people there? Yeah. And so we'll see what happens with that. They are going to change their name so they don't run into confusion with
but why aren't
downtown.
are they not working with the Downtown Neighborhood Association?
Oh, no, they are.
They are, okay.
But when this came out, it's called the Downtown Public Safety Action Committee.
Okay.
And downtown, because I've gone to a number of their meetings, since they're just really getting organized with, and nothing was left for them in the past, their names of their committees are different than what they had been named before. Mm-hmm. And this is similar to one of the committees that they have. In fact, I just spoke to somebody from downtown and suggested that while they're getting their feet wet, they might want to utilize this as their downtown public safety meeting. And then I think they're going to meet once a month, and then they can meet on specific issues for them maybe every 2 months or 3 months. So this is really a work in progress, and we'll see what comes of it. But at least they're trying to get a coordinated effort. The one thing that I have noticed is that when they're now hosting that, no camping, they're doing it in more than one area. So whether that pushes them further out into other neighborhoods, I don't know. But I've seen when they've done on 14th, they've also done Collins. I noticed one right here at the corner of the Mac. They had put up a sign. And also on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So we'll just have to see. And hopefully we'll be able to get better communication between the surrounding neighborhoods, particularly on the houseless and crime issue, and see what we can do with that. So that's that.
Are you guys ready, Portland Public Schools, or should we keep going on the agenda? We can get through other stuff while you guys are doing this.
Oh, I think we're gonna do it. Okay.
You ready to go? Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Well, hello again. My name is Eric Girding. I'm the Senior Project Manager with Portland Public Schools, managing the redevelopment of the Lincoln High School campus. And just a little bit about kind of schedule. We are kind of in the final few months of design here, starting our construction document phase with our design team. And so our plan is to be mobilizing on-site in January to begin the construction work. And for those who may not be familiar with the project, here is an aerial, of the existing campus. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to start construction on this side of the site in January, where this is where the new high school structure will be here, basically right along 18th and Salmon. And it'll take approximately about 2.5 years to build the new building there. And then when that's complete at the end of 2022, we'll tear down the old building. And this is the site plan of what it'll look like. And we'll build a new track and field kind of on the other side where the existing school is now. So the students and staff, will be attending, Lincoln in the old building while we are constructing the new building. So we're taking the track and field offline for about 3 years for the work, and so we're working to find locations for the, sports teams to be able to have their games and practices off-site during the construction. And so we've got a couple areas within the site which are kind of restricted. We call them a no-build zone. It's more or less what would have been the continuation of 17th Avenue and 16th Avenue through the site. We have a number of utilities that are underground, so those are areas that we really can't build on, which is kind of forcing us to really kind of squeeze the building and kind of have it over in the far western end of our site. So because of that tight footprint, the building is going to be fairly tall. On this side, it's 6 stories. I guess fairly tall for a high school. We've got a lot taller buildings coming up around town, but so the taller portion is kind of right along here, along the corner, really kind of helping kind of create that sort of a gateway sense of at 18th and Salmon. As far as the site amenities will more or less be the same. We are having the addition of this small turf practice field. One thing about the Lincoln campus compared to our other district high schools, it's very limited on site area, so we don't have very much athletic facilities. We don't have baseball, we don't have softball on site. We don't have an auxiliary field for soccer and football at the same time, which our other schools do. And so we're able to squeeze in at least a little practice field, which will be great. And I know that there's questions and conversations about access to the site, and we are currently working with the city to create an agreement which would include an easement that would guarantee public access to the campus during certain times. More or less the district's position is that they want to be able to maintain the safety and security for staff and students during the school day. And so the district would like the ability to have the gates be closed during the school day, but kind of in the early morning hours for commuters and walkers, and then in the afternoons, after school and evenings, the gates would be unlocked and the community would be able to access the site. We have this great kind of pedestrian throughway with a plaza and a lawn that's right there between the building and the track and field. And so that'll all be accessible by the public in those off hours and weekend times.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, here you say the agreement between the public schools and the city. Is that PBOT that you'd be dealing with?
Correct, that is PBOT, yes. And so, yeah, and our folks at the district have been negotiating with PBOT, and they've all come to kind of mutual agreement on things, and so they're just kind of working the final details of that agreement, and our land use approval is contingent on that agreement. But there's basic, sort of common agreement on the access, and we're just fine tuning kind of the hours, because for us to be able to open the gates and close the gates, I mean, that takes our staff time, and we need to understand that, when custodians are there, and then also how we're gonna have the site, be kind of open and accessible on the weekends when we don't have staff at the building.
Just a follow-up.
Yes.
Will the neighborhood association or the community have any input on this, or is this just between PPS and PBOT?
Well, we've been, I mean, the community has, we've involved the community for, a number of years with the design, design advisory group, and so the actual
egress and easement, because the streets that you want to close, are relatively, in the hollow itself, a relatively small geographic area, and what effect that has, people walking and things along those lines, from what they're used to now. I understand the importance of the safety,
sure,
but also, public.
Well, they're not
egress.
streets that we're closing. Those are right-of-ways that were vacated, a number of years ago when the school was built in the 50s. And so, currently, we have gates and fencing around the site. So, but the fencing we have now is, it's barbed wire and things like that. I mean, that's all coming down. We're going to have nice, attractive fencing, no barbed wire and things like that. But we, as far as the access, really the district's position is just during the school day and special events, they would like to be able to secure the site. Otherwise, we want to have it open for the community. But we do want to have it closed at night, just like our public parks are closed at night. And that's also a safety and security issue that, say from, I don't know, they're working on the hours, but it might be from 10 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning. We want to be able to have the site be secure during that time to really kind of protect property and safety of our
I think what Eric didn't see was you're pointing to the two streets as they are now, or as, you were pointing to what were streets but aren't streets anymore, so.
Yeah, and actually they
Don't
were
have
never
clarified.
streets. It was just the grid, of the city.
Yeah.
And so, currently right now, this is where you access underneath the bleachers, kind of in that not so great area of the campus. And so that, is changing to have, a really, really nice pedestrian access point here with this really wide walkway and then plaza area. And so we're really, we're increasing the amount of sort of plaza and publicly accessible space than what we have now.
Can I just suggest we ask questions at the end? Because I'm sure you have a lot to get through. Is that okay, or would you rather take the questions
Sure.
along the way?
No, I'd just like to talk a little bit more about the site plan, and we're having some issues with the projector kind of loading up some images, but we do have some renderings of what the building is going to look like, and we'd like to show that to you as well. But just one point here, we have this existing driveway that goes that slopes down, and we have a parking lot right here next to the building. So we're maintaining that, and we're extending the parking much further and actually going underneath the grandstands. And so this will be our parking area. It'll be accessible by cars from 16th through here, and then this will be an exit only onto 14th right there. We will have we have a service entrance here to the site. So this is where we'll have kind of our garbage service and maintenance and things like that. So there will be a gate there that's for cars and trucks that will just open periodically for that access. Then there are separate gates that are pretty wide. How wide?
15 feet, I believe.
No, as far as for pedestrians, I think it's 2 4-foot gates, so it's going to be an 8-foot opening that we'll have for people coming through. So, and that'll be fairly generous there. And the same thing at the top there, where we're sort of exiting the site. There's this entry courtyard area for the main entrance to the building, and that will is on the other side of the fence line, will actually be always accessible by the public. We are maintaining, saving these trees here. There's a heritage tree and a couple large trees next to that heritage tree, so we are preserving those and creating and actually kind of improving that habitat for wildlife and stormwater relief. Anything you want to add about the site plan?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say there's really 3 things about this project that I think are really going to be important for you guys to know about. The first is that it's really going to be very green in terms of landscape. There's an idea that the tree canopy from the park coming down Salmon and through the hills actually gets extended along Salmon and around the site. So the perimeter of the site is going to be really green. We're going to maintain the heritage trees. We've got, in addition to street trees, an additional layer of trees along Salmon. So I think it'll still feel like very park-like and very green and very open. I would say the second thing that's really important is that it's really going to have it's really more of an urban building than what's there now. I would say the school that was built in the 50s is sort of a suburban building that landed in a park-like setting. We're building up to the street edge on 18th and on Salmon, and we have some really interesting ground floor uses in the building, including the library, music and choir. There's a series of maker spaces and a wood shop along here. And these have big windows and canopies so that people walking down the sidewalk will be able to look into these spaces and see the cool stuff that's happening. And then the third thing I think that's important is that because it's a vertical school and we want kids to be active and healthy and using the stairs, The design of the stairs is really important, and they really figure in a big way in the expression of the architecture on the outside. And I'll show you what that looks like in the renderings as if they'll load up in time. Yeah. All right, so let's.
Try to skip forward there.
I'm going to try and skip over some of this stuff. Actually, I might stop here on the ground floor. So here's 18th. There's Salmon. You'll just have to use your imagination while this thing is loading. But right on the corner of the site, that's where the media center is. So that's a big, almost two-story high volume. It's about a 17, 18-foot high room. So that's got visibility onto the street and onto the corner. And then coming around this way, we have a major public stair. We have a wood shop, makerspace, product design space, choir, band, and wrestling. So that whole edge is really active. The main entry is here at the corner of 17th and Salmon. Coming this way, we have the large commons, which is a community space for dining and then community events. And that faces to the east to the field. And then we've lined up all the sort of service stuff back here where it's off the sidewalk, out of the way. And this will be loaded on the website, I guess, pretty soon, so that you'll be able to download this and take a look. So we're sorry that the projector is so slow. I'm going to skip over the plans. There will be solar panels and green roof on large portions of the roof. So for those of you sort of up in the hills looking down, it'll be a very attractive roofscape to look at. Okay, and now we're getting to renderings. Okay, so this is, we're standing on Salmon, and we're looking towards the Mac Club. This is a building that's called the Butler Blocks. That'll be started here pretty soon. That's a new apartment building that's going to start construction. Here's our 6-story portion and our 2-story portion. There's our front door. This is the pedestrian way that goes all the way through the site. We have bike parking. You can see the green landscaping that borders the site. This zone right here is a big stairway, nice wide stairway that takes you from the front door all the way up into the building. There are some open, kind of flexible learning spaces that have views back towards downtown. And the building's going to be clad in a red, high-performance concrete panel that's got a lot of texture and a really deep color to it. There'll be some lighter accent colors, almost the color of like a limestone. And that combination of kind of light, limestone-like material and deep red is a really traditional kind of high school language in Portland. You look at Cleveland, and Grant, and Jefferson, and even Roosevelt to a certain extent, have that kind of characteristic to it. Here you can see the large common space with a covered outdoor area. We've got some classrooms, an outside stair, and then you can see the gym over here. So a much denser, more vertical, much more urban school than what's there right now. And then the view at night. I think the stairs will probably remain illuminated into the evening, so the building just won't be dark at night. In fact, schools are used, pretty late into the night by students and the community. So it'll be, I think, a real beacon on this side, the part of the site that's really dark and sort of empty right now. Okay, so here we are on 18th and Salmon. So we're standing on the corner. We're basically in the dumpsters, I guess, of this building, looking back this way. So here's our other big stair. Here's our library all the way down here. You can see we've got a lot of glass, lots of canopies, a really great kind of pedestrian environment that you can look into and look out of and really feel connected, I think, to the life of the city. And then this is Salmon coming back down here. This is the future Butler block. And then going this way, up 18th, you can see the gym and other portions of the building. And there's that same view at night, and both the library and the stairs are really going to be active, after school and into the evening. So really kind of brightening the corner and populating with people and activity was a real goal of this project. And here we are, slightly different view, kind of on the at the MAC station, which I hope ends up staying there because the students use it a lot. So we'll talk to Peyton and make sure students get out there and come to the meeting as well and make sure that they're heard. So there's our stair, our library, and a really, I think, a great kind of civic presence for this building that doesn't exist right now. And then another unique feature is the Southwest Main Street kind of dead ends into this property. And so working with the city and other folks, we felt it was pretty important to kind of denote the end of Main Street and create something at the end of Main Street that was a real kind of acknowledged determination of Main Street. So we met the other day with the Regional Arts Council, and the district's going to commission a mural that will live in this location right here. This is sort of a for example only. That's not what the mural will ultimately look like. It'll probably pick up on some themes maybe related to Tanner Creek or other things that are kind of important to the neighborhood. But that's all still to be determined. And you can see our makerspace and our wood shop, the choir, and the band room. So again, a really, I think, exciting kind of urban presence and a lot of transparency and activity.
Can I ask you a quick question
Yeah.
about the previous slide? That's the MAC station that's slated to close, right?
So about this slide right here.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the Kings Hill station.
So I wonder if it would be possible for you guys to just print this as a kind of poster to take to the meeting and say, look guys, this is the future generation that might or may not be using Macs.
Yeah.
And that would be their station. Are you really seriously wanting to take that away?
Yeah.
I think that would be pretty powerful if you're willing to do that.
I think so.
And add about 50 more people at the stop.
Yeah, for sure. With backpacks and
Kids.
Yeah. And then this is the view sort of looking north on 17. So this is the new kind of pedestrian gate, the service gate, the loading dock, the gym. Gym's going to have big windows facing downtown. And this is the pedestrian way through the site. So it's going to be very sort of green and pretty open and accessible. And you can really feel like the grid of the city kind of connecting through the site. And we do have one more. Okay, so here we are on the running track, and we're looking west back at the building. So you can see we're looking at the front door over here, the stairs, the 6-story classroom bar, the commons, classrooms, another stair that basically takes you from the commons to the gym, and these are the windows, big windows in the gym, facing back towards downtown, and here you can see the running track. So I believe that's our show. That's our show, as it's loaded right now.
So
Yeah.
I have some questions. I'd like to be put in contact with I guess I will just contact the RAC. Just because so much of our history is so profound. There's blue collar history, there's immigrant history, there's Native American, Chinese American. I want the person doing the mural to understand that story.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that they hear that, and I'd be happy to give that presentation.
Yeah.
I'd also love to give that presentation to you guys if you have time, because it's so profound. I mean, I have pictures of 2 Chinese men who just loaded put a pole over their shoulders, 2 baskets on either side. They loaded it up with with vegetables that they grew in the vegetable gardens that were at least 5 acres were here on Lincoln property.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right at that intersection. And
Yeah.
so this story must be commemorated. And I know that Peyton's talking about that a committee she's working on is talking about how to commemorate that. Do you project giant images on the side of the building or whatever? But I just like to be connected with whomever's doing that, and I'd
Sure.
like to give my presentation to them. And then I know that my husband has contacted you about the cable car pulley,
Yes.
which is a beautiful work of art
Yeah,
and languishing in, I think on North Columbia Boulevard.
In a warehouse or in a yard somewhere?
No, it's in a gated underpass, or it's under the,
Okay.
so that is, I think, 1,100 pounds or 1,600 pounds or some massive
Mhm.
weight. It's so beautiful, and we had the same cable car system that San Francisco had,
Mhm.
and it went up. At 18th was the turnaround
Mhm.
to head up the hill.
Yep.
So it would be amazing to have this giant, gorgeous work of industrial and beautiful art, and also tell a little bit of that transportation history.
Sure.
So is that going to happen?
Yeah, you know, we've given a pretty abbreviated presentation.
Okay.
But I do have that photograph. We're talking about where that goes. There's a number of items, both in the old building and on the site, that we are salvaging so that the history of Lincoln on the site gets preserved. We've actually got the Sanborn maps from, over 100 years ago that show where Tanner Creek was, and we've laid it over the site. And then actually, the creek actually goes right through the front, where the front door of the building will be. We've also overlaid a Sanborn map that shows the plats of the different vegetable gardens on the site, and we're using that plat to actually inform the paving pattern in the public right-of-way. It's kind of a riff, if you will, on the patterns of the gardens that used to be there. So I think there's a ton of interest on our part, on the district's part, on Peyton's part, to really make that history come alive. And so please do come to the RAC and talk to everybody that you can, and we'd love to find a way to make that much more visible.
And where do you imagine the cable car pulley going?
I'm not sure yet. We have a spot in the, I think we want to look at it and see how, it's pretty big, yeah?
It's huge.
It's huge, yeah. So there's either a spot, there'll be other public art in the pedestrian way. There's a Tom Hardy sculpture on site of, I think it's cast bronze herons. So we want that to kind of live in that zone. It could be that the cable car pulley lives in that kind of public zone as well. I think there might be a spot in the lobby, actually, for it as well. So I think there's a couple options. But we probably ought to go take a look at it and see where it goes. But I think we want to incorporate that into the building somewhere. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, two things. I need your last name.
Lynn, L-I-N-N, first name Chris.
And I'm curious, what is the capacity of the new school for students?
The capacity, the base capacity is 1,700. Depending on how the classes actually get used and how many kids are in each class, it's easy to flex, above that to 1,900 or so.
Actually, 2,000.
2,000, yeah.
Wow.
Because
We
right
do
now-
have capacity to grow.
Yeah.
So,
Well, capacity now is what, about 1,700 students
Yeah.
there?
well, that's the enrollment, but of course, the capacity of the existing building is much lower. It's the most overcrowded school within the district.
Well,
So the new school will have 100,000 square feet more than the existing building, or say 1/3 more space.
So
So
that,
that's
I
many
mean-
more classrooms, so we have capacity to go up to easily 2,000, depending on, of course, how the district wants to manage enrollment. But
Well, because all I know is what they're projecting from the 2035 plan. Just growth here alone in Goose Hollow is supposed to go from 6,500 to 10,000. And when you look at other areas and where Lincoln is drawing from, it looks like they might be at capacity as soon as they finish the bill. And I just wondered what the maximum potential would be. Whether it could be 2,200 or 2,500 or whatever, unless they'd have to put them on split schedule.
yeah, I mean, talking about 2,000 capacity, I mean, that's really where they're still running at kind of an optimum sort of schedule. I mean, let's say right now you have people sharing classrooms, and that you don't have any room that has an empty period, basically. And so that it's called the utilization rate. And so the utilization rate could go even higher if, if the enrollment does increase. But, the district also has other ways to manage enrollment in the schools related to boundaries. And so, but basically our mandate from the district is for all the comprehensive high schools to have this capacity.
Sure. Sure.
I guess that requires me to ask, is the building expandable?
Is it expandable?
Expandable, yeah.
Uh,
Not
No,
expendable,
right now there is not, we're not planning to have additional foundation capacity to go any taller. No.
One other question. There's currently public art on site on
Yes.
On 18th. What are your plans for that?
Well, we're trying to contact the artist who created the fence along there, to talk to the artist about, a process for moving that and relocating it, so that, that's kind of currently underway to communicate with the artist and figure out kind of how that piece could be reused, relocated, potentially somewhere on site.
Where would you like to use it?
Well, we talked, that's another thing that's kind of been a to be determined. It's hard for, I don't want to say, well, we're thinking about this one area and then it won't be there and then people will be disappointed. But we do have some areas, around the site that has landscaping where we thought perhaps some of that art could be utilized. Primarily we need to, our first order of business is to reach the artist so that, because there's certain kind of protocols that we need to follow regarding the public art. There's other, as Chris mentioned, there are other pieces that we intend to salvage and place, in other parts of the site, like the Bart Simpson that's on the sidewalk and things like that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, in terms of off-site impacts during construction, especially noise, when will you start construction? How long will it be, and what are the hours?
Well, the construction starts in January of this next year, January 2020. And will take about 2.5 years to build the new school, and then we'll demolish the old school and build the track and field. So the overall construction term is about 3.5 years. The hours, right now the plan is to follow just the city guidelines for construction hours. At this point, we're not discussing the possibility of a variance from that. Our intention would just be to...
What are those hours?
I believe it's 7 to 6 or something like that. But we're not doing any pile driving. So we do have, we are going to have pilings, but those are all going to be auger cast, drilled pilings. So we,
there will be some rock columns.
Rock columns.
Those are driven.
Yeah. So there will be some noise, I'd say, in that first 6 months. Will probably perhaps be the noisiest, I guess. We're planning to then by almost by this time next year to have kind of all that foundation and sort of base work done, and then we'll start building the building up.
Well, how many blocks away from the high school will one hear the noise? Will all of Goose Hollow hear?
Well, it wouldn't be dissimilar to the other construction projects that are currently underway now. So I couldn't tell you how many blocks you could hear, and that of course varies from person to person.
Liz, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering about if you could do a very quick description of how you make it earthquake resistant.
Sure. So the structural code has what are called risk categories for building types. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I believe. Say a standard office building or an apartment building is considered a risk category 2. Really, what that risk category is related to is the sort of risk to human life related to a major seismic event. Schools are required to be in the risk category 3, so each sort of level you go up, the structural code requires, additional seismic resistance in the structure. So schools are required to be a category 3, but the district, really knowing that, our facilities are really, they kind of become a community center in the time of an emergency, and so the district is, voluntarily increasing that level to risk category 4 for the entire 2-story portion of the building. So basically this entire bar right there is designed to the category 4 standards, which are what hospitals, fire stations, and police stations are required to have. So for the structure. We also, as Chris mentioned, we have quite a robust solar panel system on the roof, and we have emergency generators. We're working out ways that we can have parts of the building kind of still more or less be operating kind of after a major seismic event. And when I say operating, not in like how it normally would operate, but at least where we can have lights, we can move some air, we could have space for people to be. So we're looking into that sort of additional resiliency in the project.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering, as you go on, will there be a time when you will be able to post for noise purposes so the neighbors can plan? Like if you know that you're going to have, you mentioned pilings, which are horrible noises, and I don't know exactly, and under say X decibels or whatever, when it hits that threshold, so the neighborhood can be aware and we can get out of there that day. Is there some forethought of like informing the neighbors so we can
Sure.
so we can plan?
We have Hoffman Construction who's going to build this building, and they're really, I think, great at building in urban areas. And I could imagine we can have either through postings or website postings or some sort of email list. I think there's a lot of ways that they can let people know, like, here's what's happening this week. These things might be noisy. Be prepared. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Just to let you know, Washington Park, you can sign up for that, and they've been sending out weekly updates as far, and then obviously things are dependent on weather conditions as well, and then they'll send up a follow-up or so.
Okay.
And that seems to work pretty well.
And also too, we don't have children there, but if I were a parent, I would kind of like to know, are they going to make an extreme amount of noise on the day that my kid's taking a math test, and there's this god-awful noise?
Oh yeah, we'll definitely be coordinating with the school and with this, what's happening with the school calendar. It's really important. We don't want to disrupt the student activity really as little as possible.
Two things. One is, Sherry, that apartment building across the street, that it's going to be under construction at about the same time. Park blocks, if they do the residential part of that project, will be at about the same time. And there are other projects going on. So if it's not this, it's going to be other stuff going on that's going to be creating noise. Fortunately, there are projects that are currently under construction that if you're not being bothered by, chances are you probably won't be bothered by this kind of stuff. So take solace in that. But the question I have for you guys, I just want to make sure that we get the numbers correct. Because my understanding of the existing school is about 180,000 square feet, and this one is 208,000 square feet. So it's not a third bigger, it's actually more like 55% bigger.
Yeah, correct.
So I think, for the purposes, if you want to tell people that we're really increasing the size of the school, you got to pump up the numbers to what they really are. Because, you're adding 100,000 square foot to 180,000 square feet, so that's over 50% bigger.
Yeah.
It's a third smaller. The existing schools is third smaller, but when you go the other way, then it's over 50% bigger.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited to see the space that is pretty dead activated. And I just wanted to let you know on the Bart Simpson etching in the sidewalk, I am incorrect. I said in my book that it was by Matt Groening. It is not by Matt Groening.
Oh.
And so just in case you were thinking that it was. It was done by an artist in the, Max 90s process.
Matt Groening is an alumnus, is he not?
He is.
Yeah.
We might get him to do one for us. I don't know.
I would say get a new one done.
Yeah.
He actually
Have
did
him
right.
do it.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Eric, the one thing that you didn't bring up is that from the original design development to this schematic design, from the schematic design to design development, you were several $1 million over budget to it, and you didn't point out where some of your cuts were, so that you had brought it up. Is it still in budget or still over budget?
Yeah, we're still in budget. When we came and spoke to the planning committee, that's when we were kind of looking at, our estimates had come in, and we were, looking at some budget issues. But what we were able to do is really make the building, more efficient, a little bit more simplified. We didn't cut any of the program space or the capacity, which is great. The design team really came up with a lot of creative ways to cut our costs. Some of it is to utilize some of the existing site features, like I mentioned, that parking lot where we're going to use there's a concessions building that was built not too long ago. We're going to keep that. So there,
Teen
some things
Parenting Center too, aren't you reusing the temporary?
Right, there's the portable classrooms that
portable
were installed a
classrooms,
couple of years ago. We're going to reuse those to create there's a little child care facility that's going to be part of the project. So that was a big savings right there. So no, thank you for the question. It was a really big effort, and we were really actually really excited to be able to get things back into budget without cutting important programs.
But I had heard you cut off a complete floor. You took out the main two-level lobby type areas, things like that. What else? What did you do in order to bring it back to budget?
So taking out a floor, we just made the building more compact. So we took, there was an additional floor up here, but this was a double height space, like 30 feet high. So we kind of took that floor off of there and filled it here. There was a little courtyard inside. We actually filled that in, put program in there. We put just a general kind of squeeze on the building to tighten things up and make it more efficient. So, the various tricks of the trade that architects have to make things more compact and less expensive.
Thank you for coming here tonight. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Tiffany, this is the time to talk about what you've been going through. Could you step up to the microphone and introduce or talk about what you're going through and what your plans are?
Yes, Tiffany Hammer, and I'm here today to talk about Southwest 14th and Montgomery. Sorry, I was thinking about that school, and my mind was thinking where my kids may go.
Yes.
Anyway, I just wanted to reach out to all of you guys to let you know, yes, we did get boulders, and I'm sorry to say we did, but we really didn't have a choice in the matter. Safety started to play a big factor with us volunteers down there trying to reclaim the area with beauty and whatnot. And one of our volunteers got attacked by a camper with a brick, unprovoked, without saying anything. And then there was campers that were getting on the freeway access right there. We started taking pictures of it. Furniture was being dropped right there on the freeway entrance. Campers would come up to us while we were watering and scream in our faces, require police intervention and whatnot. And so it just every day became a day of, is this really worth it anymore? To try to put us at harm's way every day. I mean, a lot of us volunteers spent countless hours carrying water over from our properties to provide water to the roses, and then to also have to do the personal threats to your safety. And so ODOT came in and went ahead and bouldered, but before they did that, they worked with a lot of us volunteers to relocate the roses. So 60 roses, minimum of 60 roses made it off the property, and also probably like 15 Oregon grape bushes that were mature, like 20 years old. And they're being housed in 3 different locations right now. Because of the heat, that was a factor too. I didn't have much time to think about that when relocating the roses, and we had to get them in and out and safely into the ground somewhere else, and can't plant them right now over at 14th Montgomery. So you're looking at a real medieval looking area right now. But a lot of us who own properties there are just thankful for a little bit of quiet and peace right now, and the fact that someone actually helped us. And so in September, we're looking to relocate them back into the boulders and make it look softer for the neighborhood. And I'm also working with the United Methodist Church over in Collins Circle to relocate some of the Oregon grapes that were removed from the ground to reactivate that space over there as well, because during this plight of people watching me adopt the land and for 4 solid months trying to clean up the needles, the poop, the trash, and plant the roses, and then have campers rip out 16 of them in the process. I got someone that reached out to me and said, we'd like help over in our area too, just down the road. And I said, of course. And actually I walked with ODOT to almost to Lincoln High. We looked at every ODOT area to reactivate, like where I could relocate some of these roses to kind of fix up our neighborhood, make it more livable and walkable, and not lose the roses to the landfill. And I mean, a lot of us volunteers put in $700 worth, so we weren't going to let that go pretty easy. But there's a lot of things going on right now, so just be patient. A lot of us care about this land, and I'm sure I'll be coming back in the media and talking about it. And if you do see us in the media, just be mindful that a lot of us out there care so much about that area, and the media is probably giving one version of the story and not the 4-month plight of reaching out to the commissioners for help. And the city, the mayor's office, also Portland Parks and ODOT and Lincoln High and PSU.
And unprosecuted home invasions.
Yeah.
And unprosecuted assaults.
Yeah.
And Tiffany walking over to the campers to try to introduce herself and to just human, and they took out a machete and threatened her.
Oh, they have many weapons, but it's, I think most importantly, most of the homeowners over there, property owners, whoever, you renters, I have many renters that are scared and that hide behind me. We worked with the city for 2.5 months on the humanitarian efforts with the navigation team to get this area, get these people to the shelter, to the resources they need. And this is a resistant population that we're working with. So, and I have to say, ODOT didn't just drop boulders. They mindfully waited for the city to provide every ounce of humanitarian efforts after the January.
And when the city offered services, most of the people there refused services. So they were told, we can take you to some housing, we can take you to some services, some addiction services.
Correct.
And they refused those services.
So a lot of us neighbors are hyper aware of the humanitarian services every single day, and we actually come out of our homes to offer, hey, you know what, this area was under 2.5 months. We see you looking like a familiar face. Can we get you some help? Please help us in the neighborhood. Last week we had a huge drug bust. We walked out of our homes, my neighbor did, and said, hey, is there any way you can help us? We have families here. This is really hard on our community, and we've gone through a lot. And they said, sure. And then the next thing you know, they were selling drugs right out of their car, having cars come up, and then they got busted. And then they started a fire, cooking drugs right on the sidewalk for us. So there's a lot that's going on down there, and I'm just be thankful for all of your support and see how we can reactivate our area. And thank you to the Goose Hollow Association, actually, and Swirl Board too, because both, I've been for months reaching out for pleas of help for this neighborhood. And just to let you know, I don't currently live in that neighborhood. I am a landlord. I used to live there for 5 years. I've owned it for 14 and a half. I love my tenants. They're my friends. Every one of my neighbors are my friends. I've spent many years in that neighborhood, and I would never step away from that neighborhood. And I volunteer countless hours to help in this area, and I won't leave it alone. And you'll probably see me in Collins Circle, and I'll probably be over at PSU as well, because I've got areas that I want to reactivate, because it just drives me nuts to see students at Lincoln High or PSU walking by and they can't even walk on the street. And then when I see this high school, it makes me think of an open campus, and then it makes me think, I sure hope there's security. I never once heard security. I heard everything else.
No,
green space,
what he said was, we want to be able to close the campus down from 10 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And that is why he's saying that.
Yes, I applaud that. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you. I wanted to thank you very much for everything you do and for your beautiful roses. And I wanted to make a note also that I got called by the Tribune. You might see, I think the article came out today or something, and they asked me a bunch of questions about that situation, and what I responded was, the city and the state and the other agencies have not been proactive enough over years. And that didn't speak to the fact that there is a crisis that you're responding to, but somehow they put those two things together, and the theme was like Goose Hollow residents divided or something, you know, it's sort of a
Speak
cooked
to
up
that
story.
because
Yes,
I
please.
asked the Pamplin Media Group not to put out an article because originally I want to say Goose Hollow residents in turf war with houseless people, and I said that is never the case. We
Exactly.
actually participated with the city for navigation, and so that's not us. And I really was hoping they wouldn't put that story out and put it in. I said you need to include the navigation piece because that's what we're here for, and they chose not to, and I was not happy with that story because that's not us.
No, I wasn't either.
In
No, in the
Pamplin Media
Tribune.
Group.
That's today's Tribune?
I don't
I think
know.
so.
So
I
it
think
breaks
it's
my
today's,
heart that
yeah.
they wouldn't encompass the whole picture. Like, I just want to give a little shout out to Alan Clausen, actually. He's the only one that, thank you. Forgive me. He's my newfound friend. Yes, please give it to him because he was able to do a news story on the whole picture, the holistic picture of everything in the neighborhood. And he went down to the site. He looked at the situation. Not one reporter looked me in the eye or even came down to the location. And I just,
I also wanted to add, there's an article on it in
Yes.
the Willamette Weekly, and it actually, the headline above the fold here is "Dumping Rocks on Homeless Camps," which again is a misnomer. Even within the article itself, a lot of misrepresentation. Two other things I just wanted to say. The only concern, I live on Montgomery, about a block or two from there. So now another concern that we have is what's going to happen with the little park that's there. It's a no-name park. We don't know whether the homeless or houseless might be.
I can talk about
Now,
that.
They haven't put up the fencing yet, though.
ODOT's working on more of an industrial fence along that route because what happens is drug tents hide in that forested land, and then they use 12th and 13th and 14th as ways of parking vehicles right there to do the drug transactions, and then the drug tents are back there. And a lot of the property owners, we know this game all too well, that if you get rid of the people on the street, then the tents go away from the forested areas, and it is. But with the park, I've been working with Portland Parks because they need jurisdiction for park rangers to enforce it, but ODOT actually owns the property, so there's a lot of gray area. And I'm just saying we need to reactivate our park again. We need to be able to access it safely, and this is I need all hands on deck actually for this whole area. So yeah, and then
I know the benches are not going to come back for a while.
I've been trying everything in my power to make that park more livable for us in the community, because today I was down there today and I just watched drug transactions and I was scared and I had to put a hood over, and I thought this is not the way a neighborhood should be.
And we even heard from the parks crew that works there that they are actually afraid of some of the long-term campers near there, and they had been threatening, and that they hide machetes in the trees nearby. And so they, we're not talking about, a mother and her children we're talking about a lot of active criminals and some very dangerous activity happening.
I'd have to contend to the criminal aspect of that. If you ask all those property owners right there, a lot of
And let me just say, you keep saying property owners.
Yes,
we've heard
owners.
from renters.
And I should say renters
as well,
too, because yes,
that they don't like it either.
There's I think Goose Hollow has many renters.
We're 80% renters in Goose Hollow.
And every renter on my block loves me because I speak up for them and I take care of them and I protect them, and they will tell me everything they need to feel safe again and not want to move away. I'm like, don't move away, please don't move away. Something about crime and safety is people ask me all the time, I am a crime victim. My son is a crime victim in this very same property, and I was just meeting with neighbors tonight before we got over here, and a lot of people believe that there's not really a crime problem. Oh, there's not a crime problem. No, there actually is, and everybody who's in close proximity to a camp that's an illegal camp that's not controlled or contained or whatnot, enforced. A lot of us have DA cases out right now, and it's sad to say that my aggressor, who's been arrested 223 times, is out still in the community, and there's a warrant out for his arrest, and I went to grand jury with my son last week. So there's a lot of parts down there. Those poor people were just sitting ducks down there, and people say, oh, it's just unwanted visitors in your home, you're fine. And I'm like, no, actually, living down there is a different, how it is. It's a different ball game entirely. So I get people come from across the city and they say, "Oh my gosh, the boulders are dropped," and they leave notes on my porch about, boulders bring rats and snakes or something. I don't know, but I say, "Wow, if you can't have a family here, then what can you have here?" So let's. And I came back how many months ago when I spoke and I said, please, let's not have boulders. Let's reactivate our community.
Oh, yeah, we know that boulders were your last choice, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Why did it get to this point?
Why did it get to
Now,
this
is at
point? So you'll probably.
The reason from ODOT's perspective is it's less expensive for them to do the boulders. In fact, in the article here, it showed an estimate of what it costs.
Right.
But it's less expensive than having to come and clean up all the time.
I kind of was worried about the Willamette Leak because it said that the Boulder location where I'm at was like $374,000. I can't.
For $700,000.
Yeah, and I said to ODOT today, I go, I was the cheapest. That area was the cheapest boulder in all of Portland. Why did it group like that tight though? Are they out to make?
That was my next question. That is my next question.
Most expensive boulder project in all of Portland. What?
The first question I want to follow the money and find out, what is driving it? I mean, what is driving this untrue publicity? Who's behind it?
Well, it makes, it sells ink, right, Ellen? You don't do it, but others certainly do.
Well, two things, just on a lighter note. Could you give me an email address where I can troll you?
Yeah, I don't know how the media is getting my private phone numbers, but someone's giving it to them, so.
Oh my goodness.
All right, so thank you so much. We've got a lot on the agenda to move on to. So we need to report board emails, and I only recall official things being sent, and the email from Sherry declining. We also need to elect a treasurer.
Are you still doing board emails?
Yeah, I thought, did you have something? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I got an email from Scott Cohen, who is the capital projects manager with PBOT, and he reports that they have a final design for the bike lane connections through Goose Hollow on the northwest 20th Avenue bikeway project, and I invited him to come and possibly next month make a presentation.
So I'll add that to the, is that for sure, or?
Well, he hasn't responded to confirm, but I made that suggestion. He actually asked about meeting with the transportation committee, but we don't have any meetings scheduled.
Yeah, let's just have him come present. All right. Okay, so now we need to elect a treasurer. We have been without a treasurer for several months. Do we have a volunteer?
Well, I'm not allowed to.
You're not? No, but
I can do it again.
You could do it because there was a break.
No, I was told it has to be at least a year.
That isn't in our bylaws.
That's what I was told, so. I mean, otherwise, I really.
You're already on the.
I'm still getting all that.
Right, you're already on there. It would be way easier.
Fine, well, good, then I'll set my sights that I'll get enough money to go to Europe then. Last time it was Minneapolis and
okay,
something else.
Well, should we wait till next month for Roger to say, it's Roger who's saying that it has to be a year, right?
That was my understanding.
I think that's his understanding of protocol. It isn't in our bylaws, I don't believe. So let's wait another month, for goodness sakes, and see what our bylaws say about that. Okay, now we have the Stadium Good Neighbor Agreement. Jerry, you want to?
Yeah. At the hearing for the adoption by the city, and that's not quite correct, the city has not adopted the Good Neighbor Agreement. It has recognized the Good Neighbor Agreement as required by the stadium operating agreement. At the city's hearing, an amendment was tendered by a parking stakeholders committee in Northwest that the stadium oversight committee ought to be under the control of the state public meetings law, which was pretty interesting. I'm sorry, I'm going to editorialize here a bit.
But that's not in the good neighbor agreement, is it?
It is now. It is now.
Okay.
And the problem being that the state public meetings law is intended to control the activities of a group that is either a public decision-making group or someone that advises a public decision-making group. And the Stadium Oversight Committee is neither. And that fact creates a plethora of complete unknowns. How do you make requirements for public notice applicable to a group that is basically a communications tool between the neighborhoods and the stadium management?
But the city council has already voted for this.
Yeah, they
And,
have.
and our board has already voted for that. We voted to support.
No, the board did not.
Yes, we
The board-
did.
The board said specifically that the good neighbor agreement should require
Open meetings.
no,
We did.
should specifically does not invoke the public meetings law.
So-
It required transparency and openness. And those two words in that grammatical form. And at any rate, it's kind of immaterial because the city has invoked the public meetings law and now the problem is trying to figure out how to make it work. It's created an enormous difficulty in trying to get a meeting which is required in the good neighbor agreement to actually happen, because there has to be a quorum of the folks that are supposed to be there. And actually, Northwest District has twice scotched a meeting date, claiming that it doesn't meet the specifics of the open meeting law. So the result is that there has not been a meeting of the oversight committee between the opening of between the passage of the good neighbor agreement and to date. There probably won't be one until sometime next month.
And you had another objection to or another comment on a problem area on the good neighbor agreement? On the email that you sent?
The biggest problem is that it's made establishing a meeting, a timely meeting, very difficult.
But it wasn't just the public meeting laws, it was another issue in the good neighbor agreement that you were pointing out to us in the email. Should I bring up that? Because before we vote to...
Well, I had a
Go
couple
ahead,
of
Eric.
questions on that.
Actually, I'm going to recommend that maybe we should ignore the good neighbor agreement and request the city council to revisit the whole issue.
I think that more transparency is better than less transparency, is my opinion.
My question on this, my understanding is I think the Northwest District is not going to sign it, but I'm also under the impression that unlike previous agreements where we needed to sign for it to go into effect, the city can do whatever they want. They don't need our approval on this. And with that, if that is the case, is it better to go along and approve it? Will that give us better leverage at the table? Or do we just say, no, we're not gonna sign, and we still have the whatever?
The reason that we are not required to sign is because the consultants and the Peregrine Association, et cetera, have lined it up so that our signature is no longer a bump in the road.
I understand that, but
That's why we're not.
prior to this one, they needed our signature on it.
Totally, right.
And so, I feel to a certain extent we're being disenfranchised by the city.
We are.
But, it's nothing new, they do what they will.
Wait a minute. The Good Neighbor Agreement is an agreement basically between the neighborhoods and the timbers.
Yeah, we didn't sign our own Good Neighbor Agreement, which is now a public requirement. Do you not see a problem with
I don't
that?
understand.
We have not signed our own Good Neighbor Agreement, which is currently in effect, because the city council voted on it. That's a problem, Jerry, it's a problem.
Well, actually, I think you're right. Under the city's operating agreement with the timbers are supposed to execute a good neighbor agreement with us. The city has signed the good neighbor agreement, but we haven't.
But
They're
we
not
don't-
considered
but-
not in
but
compliance,
we
there's
don't
nothing
need-
bad that
They don't
happens.
need our signature to
No.
put it into effect,
Mm-mm.
is my understanding.
They don't.
I don't believe that's true.
I don't know, from what I read in the last update that we had gotten, the last statement from them, where they show everything, whatever it is, the 70 pages or whatever, I'm under the impression, with what I had read, was that they do not need the approval of the adjoining neighborhoods for this to be put into effect. That if the council votes on it, or the Peregrine agree, then it goes into effect. At least that's the understanding that I'm under, and obviously, I could be wrong.
I think that, the city, certainly the council, had no idea what a good neighbor agreement was when this went in front of them. Two, there seems to be more than one definition of what a good neighbor agreement is that's running around. And we need to deal with that. The good neighbor agreement is a mechanism for the neighborhoods to communicate to the private entity, whatever it is, whether it's a store or a stadium, what's bugging the neighborhood. The city is a part of it because it's the only way to enforce that. If in fact the neighborhoods, hood or hoods, and the private entity can't come to an agreement.
So my feeling is more transparency is better than less transparency.
I totally agree
And I
with
would
that.
feel like, let's go with public meeting laws for a little while and see how that works out. If your gut feeling, Jerry, is that it's gonna put a wrench in the spokes, let's see if that happens. Because frankly, we don't get much out of this. They basically do whatever they wanna do anyway, so what difference does it make? Do you actually think that any of the meetings you've attended have helped us in any way? What if they don't meet?
The Timbers, through their representatives, have been enormously slow to respond to a redo of the Good Neighbor Agreement and to a new comprehensive transportation management plan.
Right.
That's true. That's kind of the way that works. It takes a long time to get change. But the impressions of good neighbor agreements in various places where they're in place is pretty varied. Where there's a willing private entity they work great. Where there's a private entity that's rather cheap, it's,
It has no teeth. It's basically a gentleman's agreement. And
yeah.
that's what we're working
Well,
with.
the teeth in this one, which is kind of unique, is that the city, because of the operating agreement, has the teeth to say, hey, Timbers, you think you have a date in August for this game, unless you fix it, that date's going to go away.
They would never do that.
They probably,
Well, my concerns, which have not been addressed, again, is with the allowing of the queuing up of the timber army, the 24 hours, whether they're going to allow tents or not. They had specific wording that they had then taken out. And more importantly, it's really the traffic control, which, and again, it's not so much before the game, but after the game with the ride share. And they keep on dicking around in terms of
No,
what
no,
they-
that's not appropriate, Eric.
Well, okay, they keep on coming up with no scenario of where they're gonna be putting these cars. We know, even using their statistics, at a minimum, there'll be 125 to 150 cars coming really pretty close immediately after the game.
And WDA shares these concerns.
That is correct. I just look at it, we don't have very many members here, even though we have enough to vote on it. I think we should wait until next month.
I was going to talk later about what the experience is with the 4 games that have happened so far.
Are you good with waiting a month, Jerry?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm fine.
all right.
Maybe we can get an oversight committee meeting sometime in the next month.
Well, I mean, if the mayor is saying, why aren't there public records? Why don't we know what's going on in these meetings? Why is there no information? I want to encourage the mayor to say that more often with more committees. And I know your feeling on that, but I'd like to see where full transparency or better transparency gets us. I'd like to ride it out for a little bit, and if we find that it is completely intractable, then do you feel okay with the idea of revisiting this to see where it goes? Or
I do. In the meantime, I think the board has to be aware that maybe we need to push it back to the city council and have that discussion.
Okay.
The facts on the ground are that I've been both on foot and by car
during game days?
adding myself into the congestion. The only significant congestion that I've been able to find is on Burnside, where the city has, for God knows what reason, closed the traffic lane eastbound on Burnside. Makes absolutely no sense, and there's no apparent reason for doing it. Secondly, what are usually parking channels in front of Scrap on Salmon and on 21st have not been reserved for ride shares. They're totally parked up. So the ride share guys have no place to go. That's the city, not Timbers.
Right, no, I know.
Those are the 2 problem areas that I see that were problem areas that we anticipated before we even had them. A third one that Timbers did have control of with respect to bicycle parking. They responded to that.
Yes.
They have about 200 feet of bicycle parking space now.
Is it all full?
It's full.
Good.
It's full.
So they need more.
Well, the indicator, whether they need more, is whether they're starting to show up tied to the stanchions around the neighborhood. And it's not nearly what it was last year. There are some. There are some.
Okay, we need to move on to new business to elect an election committee. So Roger has agreed to serve on that. It has to be people who are continuing because you can't serve on an election committee when you are terming out and possibly running for an election again. So I'd like to nominate Roger, Andrea, and Cal as people who are continuing and eligible to serve on that committee, with Roger chairing that committee. So
You need a second?
I believe I nominate and that you just vote for my nomination. So all in favor
Is
of,
Cal aware?
oh, I haven't asked Cal.
Okay.
Do you think that's gonna be a problem?
I don't think so, but just didn't know
Let's
the,
authorize you to ask him, and then we'll go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll set a new member next committee if he says no. So all in favor of electing an election committee of Roger, Andrea, and Cal? I just put you on there, sorry, hun. Please raise your hand. Okay, unanimous, thank you. So Roger has it all down to a science, and he says, okay, we need to do this at this time, this at this time, but it's just a formal meeting. Okay, we need to approve the minutes of May 2019. So has everybody had a chance to look at it?
yeah, I move to accept the minutes.
Second?
Okay, so Eric first, Michael second. All in favor of accepting the minutes from May 2019, please raise your hand. Unanimous, thank you. Treasury report,
I'll get to
Eric.
that. I can do
Oh, that's
that
right, he's
in a
taking notes
moment.
at the,
And you, Michael, you seconded that.
Yeah, I do.
And then the vote was 6-0, okay? We have the same amount of money as we had a month before, $4,875.48 in the checking, $250.18 in our savings, and so the total is $5,125.66.
a motion to accept the treasurer's report. Sherry, second.
Second.
Jerry, all in favor, please raise your hand. Unanimous, thank you. Committee report, communications, Scott, do you have anything?
I don't think so. I can talk a little bit about the mural project and
Would you
where we
please?
are with that one. So the city, the difficulty is figuring out who is responsible for giving us permission, because PBOT owns the roadway and ODOT owns the tunnel, and we're putting the mural on the tunnel. And so we're trying to get both parties together to figure out how we can get this done. And I just got an email today from PBOT saying that they're working on, he needs to talk to some person in particular and should have word back to us tomorrow. So we're moving forward slowly because we're relying on people that are, this is like last on their list of trying to take care of, but we're trying to get the two parties together to, so that we can get the proper paperwork done and the design approved so that we can actually go ahead and start.
Just hire a talented tagger and just give him a couple $100.
I do, yeah, I think so.
So if you haven't seen the mural, it's on our website, and it was designed by one of our neighbors who lives, a renter who lives in Cable Car Canyon, just beyond that tunnel. It is so beautiful, and when we get this approved, after Scott pushes that ball up the hill, then it'll be all hands on deck for painting, so can't wait.
Well, we have to do some fundraising.
I thought we had
Did you
some
say
funding.
fun? Fun or fund?
Well, we have to do fundraising in order to have some fundraising.
Okay.
Or hell raising, depending on how you.
I have a feeling that won't be so difficult. Okay, safety. Safety, Michael, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we haven't, I need to set a meeting, and it looks like it's not going to be until September. for our first meeting.
Okay. And Jerry, do you have anything else on the stadium oversight?
No.
Roger isn't here, so no.
Well, I can.
Oh, you have a report?
No meeting. Yes, for the bylaws, there was no meeting in June, and there'll be no meeting in July.
That's it? Planning? Sorry?
I just wanted to, this, before you leave, I want to just have Steve talk about about some other business.
Oh, well, when we get to other business, we'll do
Yeah,
that.
and I
Okay, yeah.
realize I jumped again.
No, that's okay. Planning.
I didn't bring my minutes with me.
That's good. We just talked about a bunch of projects, right? Wasn't there
Yeah.
something that we were gonna bring up at the meeting
Well,
here?
17th between Alder and Morrison was probably, that was discussed some. And it had its pre-application conference. Haven't heard a thing from them since then.
What type of project was it?
It's like a 7-story apartment complex.
Is that on that low automotive
Yeah.
building? Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's a half block, half of it is parking lot, half of it is like a 2-story nondescript building.
Yeah, and the parking lot actually is the other quarter. ART had a pre-application conference for its remodeling. And I'll be getting the notes from that within the next couple of weeks. And we talked about Lincoln a bit, notably about, I think mostly my disappointment that we don't seem to be getting any headway on access through the site. But we may have made our point and told it to go sit down. That's what, can you think of anything else that we particularly discussed?
We'll come back to it.
Okay, neighbors west northwest?
Well, a couple of things from neighbors west, northwest. Let me just get to the front. Actually, on June 24th, this coming, I think it's Monday, there's a McMiniman's Tavern and Pool. It's a fundraiser where half the proceeds will go to NWNW. We went over the 3.96 and civic life updates. Nothing that's moving pretty much like molasses, from what I understand. Then the other thing they're doing is they're coming up with criteria or rules for code of conduct and ethics. I have a lot of issues with that, don't need to go into it at this point. They came out with like a 3-page sheet where it's something they can really just add to their grievance procedure. But regardless of that, I've had an ongoing issue as a GHFL periphery in terms of being disparaged by the previous president 2 ago and last president. And I've been trying very diligently to bring it to the NWNW attention to get some clarification on it. And I was able to finally, after it was discussed, it took about 5 months to get it on their agenda, where I did get an apology. And the emails had been sent out, but 2 things. One, there was a, let me just find it here, from the new DNA board, who was the original person that was disparaging towards me and the GHFL. There was a letter, it says, "Ladies and gentlemen of the NWNW board, I am responding to specific emails which were critical of Eric Simon and the GHFL that were sent from the president of the Portland Downtown Neighborhood Association to the NWNW board between 2/26/19 and 3/6/19. My communication here is to declare that I, as the recently elected president of the DNA, do not understand or support the claims made in these emails. In addition, the current board was not aware of these emails or their claims and therefore does not support them." And that was endorsed by the NWNW board. And then, and this is not quite the finished communication. I was too busy expressing my opinion. June 11th, regarding the email stream of the NWNW Directors Listserv on 2/26 through March 6th. The tone and derogatory remarks that were directed towards Eric Simon and Goose Hollow Foothills League were out of line. NWNW disavows the unprofessional comments made in this email stream. So I just wanted to bring that to this board's attention, and hopefully the harassment that they've given to this board in the past in terms of trying to even get us thrown out of NWNW will stop, but we shall see.
Could you send us around that list of behavior guidelines?
Yes, as I say.
Is that available on email?
I can see what I can do. Right now, it's really just a rough draft.
Oh, okay, well.
Which they haven't even really, I mean, there were a lot of questions in terms of who determines what. Also, I look at this just from a personal point of view, that this is a policy. They say, no, it's administration. So we'll see what happens next month. I don't think anything is going to be done on this until, well, they don't meet, I believe, in August, until September. So we have plenty of time for me to give you something that hopefully is going to be a little bit more reasonable than 3 pages. So that is it.
Well, our representatives, you and Roger, have taken quite a lot of abusive behavior, and I believe
I was 6'4" when I started going there.
And I've observed a lot of gentlemanly behavior out of you, Eric, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for.
Well, that can stop.
It has been shocking to see an organization that, when simply asked to follow their own bylaws, get utterly shocked and appalled, and you're being disruptive, and we need to create some rules. And what they are creating rules about is saying you need to follow your bylaws. So I believe in following the bylaws if that's what they're there for. So I'm glad we're on a new day, and I really appreciate all the work you've done personally, Eric, to get us to this new day. And I think with changes in different neighborhoods.
I work for tips.
We owe you a beer for sure.
I'm waiting, Jerry.
Okay, so Sherry, you had something in other business.
Wait,
Yes.
I'm sorry, so I just remembered what planning issue that we kicked up to the board.
Too late, I'm
I didn't
past
want to
that.
deal with it. I know, sorry about that. So if you remember that there's an application to take the historic designation off the police stables building.
Yes.
And we wanted to just inform the board or remind them that there is this application. I think we have until August sometime to reject. So I have mixed feelings about it because it seems like a very underutilized space. Right now there's a big, BMW parking lot there. Who is using that space right now? Yeah. With barbed wire fencing around it and stuff like that. And the building facade looks really nice on one side. The rest of it is kind of painted white. And it's an interesting scale. I'm just not sure, whether there's a better and higher use for that property, or if we should really object to taking the historic designation off of it, as long as we have a plan for figuring out what to do with that property.
That's the problem. Is I would normally, be really, really vigilant over any removal of any building off of historic designation. But if you look at the historic photos of that building, it's built on pilings hanging out over Tanner Creek. And it is, I can't imagine how structurally sound it might be. It would probably need a lot of effort to get there. I would love to see, at the very least, a facadectomy, where that history and the feeling at the street is preserved. But part of me thinks that we should object to anything removed off of the historic designation. Michael, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Nobody wants to fight for this building?
It's, I walk by it, it does seem kind of somewhat nondescript as opposed to a number of the other buildings that might be worthy of salvage or keeping.
It's kind of an example of industrial architecture from an in-between state, in between the horse-drawn Portland and the motor-drawn as a piece of history to be very interested in that building. Architecturally, well, it's a stable building. And as such, it's actually a fairly early example of a special purpose building that's very difficult to reuse in a constructive way.
Tracy, you didn't identify the building. What's the property address and what's the nature of the building
So
right now?
the police stables is, if you're going down 16th where it dead ends at Lincoln High School, and KGW's on one side.
It's on the same side as Peter.
It's on the other side, across from KGW. And it has been used for storage for many, many years. It could be, I agree with you, Jerry, it could be really a beautiful industrial space. It could be. I don't know how sound, but I mean, it's been standing for over 100 years, so.
I mean, is that something that we can talk to Peggy Moretti at Restore Oregon about and just see? I mean, I've talked to her before, and sometimes she'll say, well, there's not much we can do about that, but.
Why don't you, if you don't mind emailing her,
Sure.
since you have a strong relationship there,
Yeah.
just,
So if you remember, the Lincoln High School plans, the plan was to have that street extend into the parking lot for the school, and the grandstand. So I think that's gonna be the main entry point for people that are going to be watching Lincoln High football games and soccer games and, other things like that. So it might actually be, kind of a major entry point to that campus. Not that, that building will be turned into a pub anytime soon, but, there could be a lot more activation on that street after the Lincoln High School plans.
This building, kind of lost in the shuffle in that really busy street.
well, I mean, if we want to fight for it, let's send out a letter saying we, prefer it not be removed from historic designation.
Well, so the question is, it's a big plot of land. There's a lot of parking lot there, and I think Tracy, you and I had discussed if there was some way to integrate the old building or facade acme or something like that into any new development that takes place on that space, then that would probably be ideal, because it would take care of the ugly parking lot with the barbed wire and provide some activation to both that street and the street just due west of it.
There's an interesting precedent that I just went by today, which is the old fire station on Gleason, right near 405 with the Touche club. And they were going to buy it and demolish it, and then they were persuaded to leave it, and so they wrapped it with an L-shaped building. It's pretty overwhelmed by this new building, but still, it's preserved the building.
Yes. So we need to vote tonight so that I can send out a letter, or the planning committee can send out a letter.
First of all, I'm happy to contact Peggy, I can do that, but I'm happy to move to authorize you to write a letter. I know other people have gotten disgruntled in the past about not actually having the text of the letter to review, but in this matter, I'm personally confident to just give you the authorization to go ahead. Do the other
Any
board
second?
members agree? So
That was
that's my
the
motion.
motion?
That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, wait, so the motion is to write a letter concerning,
Authorize the president to write a letter seeking the preservation of the
Police stables. The historic designation of the police stables.
police state historical. Okay, and so.
You're right, Jerry, it could be
Michael
quite stunning.
is first.
It could be quite a stunning building, you're right.
Jerry is second.
It's
Okay.
difficult.
Yeah, it is. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Eric?
I'm gonna just abstain.
Abstain, okay, so that motion carries. All right, any other further business?
I have two small things.
Uh-huh.
One is that Martin Nicholson from the Hoyt Arboretum has agreed to do another tree tour
Mhm.
of Goose Hollow, which will be, I think it's the third week in September, and I'll be sending a letter to the board
Mhm.
where he, just like he did last year, and so he's looking forward to making this an annual event. So that's exciting. And then I wanted Steve to talk about the actual Hoyt House that Steve and Daniel have been putting a lot of work into trying to get a designation for that magnificent giant sequoia in front of the Hoyt House. And I wanted Steve to talk about it.
Oh, just real quickly, Daniel put together a terrific package. It looks
Steve, can you
real,
go into the...
it looks real convincing, but we thought the transmittal letter, if it used Goose Hollow stationery, would look more impressive. So the question is, can we use Goose Hollow stationery?
Only if we vote for the board to support that.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
So, Sherry, would you like to put a motion on the floor?
Yes, I'd like to put a motion on the floor that the GHFL support the letter going to the new residents of the Hoyt House to ask them if they are interested in making the Hoyt tree a heritage tree. Did I say that correctly,
Yep.
Steve?
Oh, well then who would sign it? Daniel was elected.
No, that's the Goose Hollow Friends of Goose Hollow. He's on Friends of Goose Hollow.
Oh, he's on Friends of Goose.
I would need to sign it.
So you would sign it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we could give you what he wrote
No,
up?
I think you should write up what you've already done, and it should go out under your name, and that this letter should go out under our name to join you. So I would write a letter to join you in that and to ask
Oh,
them.
I see. So we would give you the whole package?
No,
If we-
I would write a letter and then give that to you to put with your package.
Oh, okay. Fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is it possible to see the letter that he's written for us to support, or?
Yeah, we
I'm
could
I'm
furnish
familiar
that.
with the tree, I remember. on
We
the
could
tour.
furnish you that with all the backup
Do
information.
you want to wait till next month to vote on it?
Yeah, I think so, if, that could be sent to the board now, and we can send it out at least to.
All right,
Oh,
so that'll
okay.
be for next month then.
Okay.
Okay, Sherry, you'll have to remember to put that on the motion on the floor.
Okay.
I'll put it on the agenda so you don't forget.
Okay. thank you.
Okay, that it would even give more clout to it if the
Okay.
board supported it. Thank you.
Okay, and you had something else?
No, it was basically two things, both having to do with trees. The Martin Nicholson Hoyt Arboretum
Okay.
Heritage Tree Tour, which will be probably the third week in September, where we'll meet at the Goose Hollow Inn. We'll have a tour for a couple hours, hour and a half, whatever, then meet at the Goose Hollow Inn afterwards for questions from Martin Nicholson. And then the other thing is the pursuit of this heritage tree.
Okay.
So both having to do with it.
Hey, Sherry, there was, in the last year's tour, there was some discussion about updating the heritage tree inventory in our neighborhood.
Yes.
Not necessarily, adding to it, but, some of the listings there say this tree is 150 feet tall, when it's actually 220 feet tall, because it was
Correct.
done such a long time ago.
Steve, you want to address that, since you're the one who's been doing the work on it?
Yeah, Daniel's been doing it.
Daniel's been doing the
So
work
is
on
he
it.
updating it then? He's working to update the figures, facts and figures? in the inventory?
I don't think who hasn't been working on
No.
it, Steve?
He doesn't have the technical capability to measure the heights.
So it's the urban
No, that's-
forestry is
Yeah,
the
urban forestry was
is the one that does that. And they are really the
it. I mean,
shoestring.
we can make estimates using geometry and things like that, but they are more sophisticated.
They have iPhone apps that will measure stuff now. I'm wondering if you can just use the phone and say, here's the base of the tree and there's the top of the tree, and we'll measure it.
Wow.
Maybe we'll try that.
Yeah.
Okay, and I wanted to let you guys know that I'm giving a talk on the history of Goose Hollow, August 4th, at the Hollywood Library at 2 p.m., if you're interested in coming.
Okay, hold on again.
August 4th, Hollywood Library, 2 p.m.
And I just want to wish everyone a very happy July 4th. Remember to have a 5th on the 4th, just don't drive.
Okay. All right, we're adjourned, thank you.
Yeah.